Hey, what's up guys? We're students from the University of Vermont, and today we want to talk to you about how and why to implement a rotational grazing regime with your beef herd.
Before we get into it, let's take a look at a farm in Shelburne, Vermont, who uses this system. Bread and Butter Farm is located on 143 acres in Shelburne, Vermont. While they manage close to 200 acres, the remainder is owned by their neighbors as a part of a trade system. The farm has used rotational grazing since they started about 7 years ago. They have since grown as a small business to include an educational program with young children, Friday night burger events, while also running a CSA and small store. The farm produces meat, raw milk, and vegetables. They have partnerships with 2 local food stores, City Market Co-op and the Healthy Living Market. Though not organic certified, their standards and practices are designed to mimic ecological processes which far exceed the requirements for the certification.
Rotational grazing is the practice of intensively moving your herd among different parcels within your land, such that they are imitating herd migration dynamics. This is a powerful management system that allows you to shape the energy flows within your land and improve the land's quality as well as herd health. The most immediate benefit of rotational grazing is an improvement to the cow's diet and thus overall health. This system allows them to demonstrate more natural foraging behaviors, though under the guidance of the fences you lay. Though it may be difficult for animals who are accustomed to a strictly corn diet to adapt, they are not going to let themselves starve. What I'm saying is that they may take some time to recognize that the pasture they're standing in is loaded with food, but after some training and learning from more experienced herd members, you may find that when given a browse line on the edge of a hedgerow, they're going to go straight for the woody species that they don't encounter in the middle of pastures. This is shocking to people, but wait until you see the breadth of land management opportunities opened up by training your cattle to forage. The animals can tell that different plants provide different nutrients to them, so if they're not able to access those woodies all the time, by the time they are moved back to a woody browse line, they'll be craving the nutrients they provide. The same principle is why they will eat mineral supplements when provided. They know that they're deficient in that mineral, and it feels good to them to satisfy the cravings that their bodies are having. By improving the cow's diet, you are improving their efficiency as land management tools, as well as the quality of the meat that they provide. The higher quality meat can then be sold at higher prices, and there's a growing demand for grass-fed beef among consumers, so grazing them adds value to the product.
Granted, as a farmer you don't want certain species to enter and completely dominate the system, so monitoring and controlling them as opposed to eliminating them entirely allows for more beneficial organisms to come in. Moving cows frequently prevents them from overgrazing in certain areas. The idea is that they eat the top 4 to 6 inches of vegetation and trample the rest to assure constant ground cover. Bare soils retain less water and nutrients and are more prone to erosion. Furthermore, exposed soil can easily bake and crack, making it difficult for any plant to establish there afterwards. Maintaining plant cover means that more carbon from the atmosphere is being sequestered, while more plant biomass is being added back to the soil as they decompose. The other input that this system provides for soil health comes straight from the cows. Their manure provides additives for soil fertility, meaning that more plants can grow back faster, allowing quicker paddock rotation. Through a holistic lens, rotating your cattle is really beneficial for the land, which is the most important asset to any farmer. These grazing regimes can greatly strengthen land quality, going beyond the concept of sustainable to be regenerative. Given the present threat of climate change, it is imperative that we are improving lands rather than further depleting them of their resources. The best thing for land in this case is what's best for the cattle: diversity. A diversity of species in the landscape makes it more resilient to long and short-term stressors by adding a variety of nutrients to the ecosystem and creating more opportunities for different species to establish.
Brandon is the livestock manager at Bread and Butter Farm. He has an educational background in permacultural practices and ecology. While Brandon is currently solely an employee at Bread and Butter, he is fortunate enough to live at the farm center and is deeply invested in his livelihood. He monitors the herd closely and maintains consistent rationing by observing cow days per acre, a tool to measure the production and feed capacity of any given area of pasture across the various plots which are grazed. One of his main goals in utilizing the intensive rotational grazing system is to maintain as close to 100% vegetative cover with as little exposed soil as possible. By following this one key guideline, pastures maintain resiliency through increased water filtration, consistent nutrient uptake, resistance to erosion, and resistance to drought.
Okay, so I started here in May of 2016 of this year. Corey and Adam started the farm, Bread and Butter Farm, and Adam was in charge primarily of the beef cattle and the animals in general. And so a lot of these animals grew up under his management. What that means is that we're trying to leave behind a nice residual. Everything about grazing, just like forestry and basically everything to do with ecological systems, if you're going to take, it's all about the residual. Everything. So it's not even about what's there, it's about what you leave behind, because what you leave behind is going to then foster what comes in next, right? So what we're trying to do is leave a sufficient residual with our management, and that's definitely what Adam and Corey have always done, is tried to do a really good job with the residual, tried to do a really good job with the trampling and everything else that comes with that. So when I came in, my management was a little bit more, slightly more holistic, maybe a little bit more fully ecosystem encompassing, where I look at those trees right there in the hedgerow as part of this paddock, because they're shaping what's going on in this pasture. But I would say it's not too far off what they've been doing for a long time.
The first step in developing a rotational grazing plan is to clearly articulate your goals and objectives you intend to accomplish within the system. Considering long and short-term trade-offs will dictate what actions to prioritize and when they should be implemented. One may want to consider species involvement. Besides plant species, while not used at Bread and Butter Farm, other animals can be added to the system, such as poultry in a leader-follower system, where birds will further spread the nutrients left by larger animals. Also, the use of smaller animals grazing with larger livestock, such as sheep, could be involved.
Once the goals of the system have been determined, the next piece to consider is the land. Before going ahead and implementing a system of any caliber, one needs to know what they are working with. While seemingly obvious, land size is crucial to the design of any system. Then, it is important to make informed observations of how the landscape functions on a daily basis, responds to seasonal changes, and varying weather conditions. Observations of topography, water availability, and soil characteristics will influence the shape, size, and time spent in paddocks. Mindfulness of plant diversity, shade, wind protection, and trees for scratching are also helpful in how animals will interact with the system. Since cows are naturally prey animals, and if you have one part of your paddock that has a higher ground, then they're going to concentrate around there. So generally you want to follow the contours of the land and put your cows on uniform elevations if possible. Also, taking into account water flows can be incredibly important, especially depending on the season, and giving your cows access to browse line as well.
That's actually most of my time in managing them, is setting up this fence. You know, it's been said that the art of forestry is in the marking of trees, the art of grazing is in the laying of line, and where that line goes and how you're setting up for how many times a day.
Dedicated management is important regardless of the size of the system. Given their intense grazing capabilities, moving fence lines, managing the herd, and establishing herd dynamics and relationships is vital. Keeping a healthy herd contributes to the system in obvious ways and reduces extra inputs. Possibly the most influential part of managing the rotational grazing system is the development of herd dynamics and relationships. It is important to communicate well with the animals and have an understanding of their needs. This may be accomplished with time spent with the herd or one animal in particular to gain trust and leadership.
She's actually an old dairy cow that after they closed down the small micro dairy that was here, she joined the beef herd. She was actually slated to go this year, but we kept her because of the herd dynamics. She's just a really good leader. Her and I have a really good working relationship, and if she were to go, then someone else would have to come up and step into her shoes, so to speak, and that could be an awkward relationship. So when I came in, it was actually really helpful for me to have her already in a leadership role in the herd, because developing my relationship with her actually develops my relationship with everyone else in the herd, so it's a lot easier, it's a lot more functional.
Designing and drafting the layout of pastures and paddocks is important. As previously explained, the design process should consider the goals of the system, land size and observations, climate, herd size, labor and management capabilities, and financial abilities or limitations.
Finances are a part of the system in the fencing required, labor costs, retail, and seasonal barriers. Rotational grazing requires temporary fencing that is easily movable, ideally with the least amount of labor inputs. Labor costs are involved as stated in the countless hours of moving and maintaining the herd. Supplemental costs may be needed to provide for feed during winter months and shoulder seasons to support animal nutrition, depending on farm location and climate. Lastly, finding the equilibrium price of sustainable production is needed. This determination can be useful for understanding potential financial feasibility.
We move them anywhere from 4 times a day to once a day. It totally depends on the day, what the animals' needs are, what the pasture's needs are, what the weather was the day before and the coming day. You know, is it going to be wetter or drier, the time of year, and then also my personal life. Like, am I trying to go out to dinner that night, or am I going to be around and I have plenty of time, or am I getting ready to, you know, go into a meeting and I know I'm not going to be available or whatever it is, or am I injured or sick or whatever it might be. So those are sort of the factors that determine what we can do. We always do better if we move them more. If we could move them 4 times a day every day, we would be way more profitable and productive and do better by the soil, but it's just not always realistic.
Though it requires more labor, the environmental, social, and economic possibilities highlight the value of an intensive rotational grazing system. We'd like to leave you with this final thought.
Where they are right now is 22 cow days per acre this time of year. Earlier this year, they were 90 plus cow days per acre on the same exact pasture. It's just different parts of the year, different growing periods. Over the hill there on our neighbor's land that's received the least amount of attention, but just to give you a comparison, right now is about 11 cow days per acre because it hasn't received our management enough. And even at its best throughout the year, it's like 15 cow days per acre. Whereas we're getting like 90. So imagine, that's basically just more land. Like, we're creating land through the management that we do.
Well, that just about wraps up our video about rotational grazing. We hope you learned a lot about how and why to implement the system.
We want to thank Bread and Butter Farms for allowing us to work with them and on their property. They were super helpful and, you know, really smart people over there. If you want to check out more about them, go to breadandbutterfarm.com. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.